Hi Dixons, I'm Adam Clough. I'm the head of MFL and an Associate Assistant Vice Principal at Dixons Trinity Chapeltown over in Leeds. In this episode I'm going to be talking about what we mean by feedback, not marking, why we do it and how it manifests across Dixons. We know that feedback is only useful if students use it to improve their understanding and performance. We also know that written marking can be one of the main contributing factors to excessive teacher workload. And so in 2016, when an EEF review noted that the basis on the effectiveness of written marking is weak, a lot of schools moved away from the process of individualised written marking and moved towards a policy of consistent and effective feedback. Here at Dixons, we've always placed considerable emphasis on the power of feedback. One of the first things to note is that giving feedback to students is an ongoing process. So in other words, the teacher does not always provide feedback after the fact. We don't see feedback as the traditional process of, one, taking the books in, and two, writing next steps on the work, and three, giving it back to the student to look at. Instead, students receive purposeful feedback during and after the lesson in the measures that are most appropriate to their emerging needs. This is an ongoing process between student and teacher, and the result of this is improved learning and performance. It's probably a bit helpful to think about what this feedback process can look like before, during, and after each lesson. So before any lesson, the teacher makes sure that they know precisely what data they are hunting for in their students' work. So you're thinking, what is the desired endpoint? What benchmark am I measuring my students against? The teacher also clearly understands the process required to achieve excellence and has anticipated and planned for any common misconceptions that might prove troublesome. During the lesson, the teacher constantly assesses student output to inform the feedback process. They do this by being targeted and being specific when they're looking at their students' work. So you're thinking about questions such as, what are the emerging gaps? What do these gaps tell me about my students' understanding? What would be the most useful way to give feedback in this moment? What is crucial during this assessment process is that the teacher thinks about why the students are unable to achieve excellence. Is it an issue with declarative or procedural knowledge? Is it an issue with knowledge recall or knowledge application? Once the data has been collected from the students, the teacher can quickly assess how best to provide feedback. Sometimes the feedback can be delivered almost instantly. This can take many forms, so a few examples of this are further instruction and responsive additional practice, show call, whereby the teacher puts a piece of student work under a visualizer and then guides all of the students in their class to use it to close their gaps in knowledge. It could be drilling on mini whiteboards, or it could be even breakout teaching. However, if the data collected means that more extensive feedback is necessary, then the teacher might take the classwork in and read it further. As the teacher does so, they will make notes on the global successes and next steps, identify students who have done particularly well, those who need support, and then put together an action plan that will improve their understanding. In the following lesson, the teacher will deliver the feedback to the entire class and support students in closing any identified misconceptions or gaps in knowledge, or in fact support the students in pushing exceptional work even further. Regardless of the form that this feedback takes, there is one crucial question that needs to be answered. Is the feedback given information that students can use? We do need to be mindful to avoid giving comments that Daisy Christodoulou refers to as true but useless. So an example of this might be, make sure your tenses are coherent. That's true, but it's kind of vague. So instead of such vague comments like this, we have to provide students with a set of clear, easily actionable steps that will close gaps in knowledge and improve performance. Again, this can take many forms. So you might use show call. So you project an example of student work that exhibits many of the common misconceptions in your class. You would guide the students in your class to find the errors in that piece of work and then correct them. Then, most crucially, you guide the class to find a similar error in their own work and correct that. This not only closes gaps in knowledge, but builds students' self-efficacy. You might decide that you need to provide further instruction on a particular area of weakness. You might do this by guiding students to assess a model of excellence before providing them with additional practice or questions that will allow you to assess the extent to which they have closed their gaps. Again, crucially, when feedback is approached in this way, students continue to make fantastic progress, whether or not the teacher has spent hours and hours writing comments in every child's book. And really, that's what it's all about. I do hope you found this video useful, and thank you very much for watching.